here. And that looks good, I think. Cool. And let's put that on canvas. Bam. Do the thing. Oh, I didn't at people, did I? Damn it. At everyone for week 8. Annoy 600 people. There we go. Delete that. And we're good. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. General Kenobi. I'm glad to see the traditions are still alive. Calbazar. How are we doing? How are we doing? How is my stream health doing? That's what I want. I only have one Red Bull for tonight. Tonight's going to be a little stream. It's going to be quite short. So I hope. Well, I think it's going to be quite short. So it's a one Red Bull stream. I do like that we can measure the intensity of the ENGG1500 semester by how many Red Bulls Dylan has in his hand. Are you going to go over the point 0.7 people and those that got over 100%? Because after watching the video, I'm still confused. Yeah, sure. Yes. You might have to ask me about the 100% thing again. I don't have a dot point for that, but the point 0.7 absolutely, and the point 2s. Basically, you need to email me. The short version of this is you went through had this big system that calculated your grade, and if you were missing a part of it, then you basically ended up with a 0 for a whole heap of it. Well, I should roll back. There's a better explanation of this. If you didn't fill out the Assessment 3 peer reviews, you didn't get entered into the peer review system, and that had a multiplier to your grade in it. So you got a 0 there, which means you got a 0 for everything. And then at the very end of it, I stuck a plus 0.5 and plus 0.2 static thing onto your grades, not as a function of that thing. So it means that you basically didn't get picked up in the peer review process. Is the very short answer is you didn't get picked up in the peer review process, and we need to work out why. There are some people who legitimately didn't get picked up, and I don't know why. Microsoft Forms just shit the bed, and I'm manually going back and regrading those people. Hey, Bailey, line following is working. Well done. That's fantastic. Can you do the hard 90-degree corner? By the way, for everybody's context, Bailey is clearly part of the robot project, and their final track got released during the break. A3 grades, we're going to talk about. Can you ask me that question again when we are talking about A3 so I answer it for everybody? But I'm hoping over the weekend, although I don't think I'll be able to. Like, I literally don't think there are enough hours in the weekend for me to get the grades sorted. But my plan is to get them sorted as soon as humanly possible after the final part of A3 is due. Oh, Bailey, you're in business. Can you turn right at the first Y intersection? Can you come out of the garage and deliberately turn right? Red Bull is fine. My body is fine. Let's be honest, it's the stress that's causing the problem on my body, not the Red Bull. The Red Bull is a symptom, not the cause. What is the time? It's 5 o'clock. How was everybody's break? Did anybody actually take some time off? Did anybody do anything enjoyable, or did you all just work the whole way through? Which is fine. I worked the whole way through. Worked. Break was awesome? Hey, good for you. Yeah, we worked. Oh, that sucks. Grands 007, that's awful. Yeah, break is absolutely a misnomer, right? Oh, that's awesome. Samuel, there you got to be part of that. Oh, also, I think I fixed your Discord issue, by the way, Samuel. I think I have anyway. Can you check for me? Yeah, the break is a good time to catch back up, right? Um, Sweet, that's awesome. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but they're trying something new next semester. So, for the last like 3 years, what they tried to do in semester two was line the break up with the school holidays, which meant it came between week 10 and 11. Most most years it was coming then. Um, and that's just, can you imagine having tried to get to finish week 10, get to the start of week 11 before having your mid-semester break? It was just a disaster. So they're doing something different this year, sorry, next semester. And I think they're going to have two 1 week breaks scattered in the semester. So I'm curious to see whether that makes life better for you guys or worse. I think the two 1 week breaks will be better in some ways, but harder in others. What I really don't like about it is they're not at the end of week 4 and then at the end of week 8. I would have liked it if they did 4 weeks, 1 week break, 4 weeks, 1 week break, 4 weeks, and that would have been the 12-week semester. But they haven't lined them up that way. So that's coming. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's a thing. Last semester the break was after week 10. Yeah, it's brutally difficult, right? Mid-semester break coming between week 10 and 11 of a 12-week semester. I was like, I don't think you know what those words mean. It's not a mid-semester break at that stage. Okay, let me just make sure my stream health is good. That looks fine. That all looks fine to me. Let's get into it. Yeah, it's 4 past. That's close enough. Let's get started. So, false start. Come on. Come on, Dylan. Be better at this. Yes, I hope your break was productive. I know for very many of you, relaxing is not the right word to use. I know many of you worked very hard through it, so I hope it was either productive or relaxing, or you got something out of your break. Welcome back. It's good to see you guys again. I've seen as many of you as I can so far this week. I've been in as many classes as I possibly could be. It's obviously not all of you, but I've been trying to get in and get my finger back on the pulse of how you are all doing. as far as I can see, you're doing pretty well. I'm honestly pretty stoked with how many people come back after the break and had a prototype to put in front of me of something, or had really progressed their designs massively. Um, I'm pretty happy with where the course is sitting right now. The week after the break is a big litmus test because before the break, a lot of people, they haven't started building and stuff like that, and that's fine. It's kind of to be expected. But being able to come back in this week and see that, yeah, people have got this. They're absolutely going to make it by test day is really, really nice to see. So I'm quietly confident in how well this cohort is going to go running into test day. There's a few groups that I've got some pretty big question marks over that have caused, you know, some questions and in some cases some actions, but overwhelmingly you guys are doing great. I'm really, really happy with where you're up to. So congratulations to you. You're kicking ass. You're awesome, basically, is what I wanted to give you. I know many of you probably met with me over the last week, and I might have given you a big push, which might have made you feel like you're massively behind. In reality, most of you aren't actually that far behind. You just need a push to make sure you kick ass on test day, and that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. Today, and actually everything you get from me between now and the end of semester is going to be pretty chill. The idea here is that you guys are here to work on your projects. The back end of ENGG1500 is work on your projects. That's where most of your brain cells and your effort go every week. And I'm just going to provide some support content. So there are no more big lectures to come. There hopefully won't be too many big live streams. In fact, the only big live streams will be ones where they're helping you with your final report and stuff like that. There won't be a lot of other content. So today we're going to hit assessment 2 and assessment 3 as a bit of a recap, talk about your projects, and I'll try and give you some help with that. And that's kind of it. I'm going to give you a sneak peek of your final report as well, but like that's it. So this isn't going to take us too long today. Okay, so assessment 2, it's all done. All your grades are out. I'm sorry that it took so long for your grades to come out. I know that you completed this assessment quite a while ago, and then we needed to have assessment 3 happen where people gave the feedback, and then I used that feedback to help build your grades. I thought I would be able to take that feedback and within a couple of really big long days between when assessment 3 feedback was due, I'd be able to get your grades. There were a lot more plagiarism cases than I expected that I had to follow up on. There were a lot more people who weren't anonymous or they named team members that I had to follow up on than I expected. And there were a lot more people who violated the submission rules than I expected, and that did things like meant that they didn't enter into grade calculations and all sorts of different things. So I don't know, maybe that was a little bit of an oversight on me that there was more of that so many of these happened. So it took me a little bit longer to get to a point where I could satisfactorily release grades. And even though I got as far as I could, a whole bunch of you ended up with getting either a zero point 0.2 or a 0.7 out of 10. What happened here is there was a big complicated grading system that I used, and a couple of parts on that had multipliers in it based on things like getting your peer review data and stuff like that. If you didn't fill out the spreadsheet in assessment 3, then you didn't go into the peer review pool. Even if others reviewed you, your student number didn't get entered into the calculation because you didn't do it when I downloaded the results. Which meant you got a multiplier of 0 somewhere in the equation, and it just decimated your mark all the way down. So that's one of the things that has required a lot of manual follow-up that I'm still in the process of doing. So if you got a 0.2 or you got a 0.7 and you think that you had a legitimate go at the assignment and you think you did things correctly, feel free to reach out to me. Another thing that a bunch of people did was like they didn't put their student number in the title page, and so they got 0 because of course they got 0. So there's a whole bunch of those edge cases that I'm still following up on. I say a whole bunch, like there's 500 people, 570 students I think made a submission, and if like 5% of those students have made a mistake, that's still 25 cases I have to follow up on. But if 5 markers mark them and raise an issue, that becomes 125 issues to follow up on. So it's fine. It's just taking me longer than I expected. If you got a 0.2 or a 0.7 and you don't know why, the most common, the overwhelmingly most common reason is you didn't fill out the peer review part of assessment 3. This was mandatory and you had to do it. So if you didn't fill this out, you will have, this is the reason you got the bad results. So if you did fill it out, if you're really sure you filled it out, please let me know that. If you didn't fill it out, please also let me know that. Because this is going to be my first question to you. Some people absolutely did fill it out, and yet they haven't appeared in the list, and I'm still trying to manually track down why that happened. So I'm working on it. If you got a 0.2 and a 0.7, please let me know, and please also tell me whether you filled that form out or not, because that's going to be my first question to you if otherwise. The big other takeaway from this is whenever you submit assignments, please make sure you follow all submission rules to the fucking letter, okay? No human being ever sorted your grades at any stage. I never went into Canvas and opened you up and looked at them. Every single part of the sorting process was automatic, and it was automatic based on you following the submission rules. I had a check in there to make sure, like, if you named your file correctly, then we had a way of catching you, but a whole bunch of people didn't name their fucking file correctly, and so they got zeros as a result. Submission rules are given for a reason. Follow them, or you will get 0. I say this because your final report is coming, and it's going to have a bunch of submission rules as well. And when that comes around, I'm giving you, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit at the end, but your final assignment is due as late as I can possibly make it. And the reason it's due there, the hard cutoff, is there is a date in which I need to provide your grades to the university. And if I haven't submitted a grade for you by that stage, you fail the course. So you cannot have an extension, and you must do everything because we need this to work as quickly as humanly possible for the final report. So this was like your test run. Don't fuck the submission rules up, okay? They're super duper important. If I tell you to, put your student number in, name a file in a correct way and whatever, do so because the system requires you to, or you will get 0, or you will fail the entire course. And I don't want you to do that. That's why I'm so clear about them. So, the 10.7 thing. So I did my best to go through and make a system that incorporated all of these different details and calibrated a grading curve and did everything to give you the fairest possible grade I could. And I was super duper happy with that, and I thought the grade distribution was good, and I went through and I manually checked like 40 different people, and I manually marked them and checked where they all sat to see that I thought it was fair and it was good, and I was happy with it. And I was. In every case, but a couple of people who had just had failing grades, and I don't think they deserve to fail. And the lowest one of those I found had 4.3 out of 10, and I don't think they deserve to fail. So I added a 0.7 to them. But in order to be equitable, I added a 0.7 to every single person in the cohort at that stage. So if you were sitting on 10 out of 10, I added 0.7 to you there. And that's how you ended up with 10.7. I am in the interest, I will bend and break rules left, right, and center at this university until somebody catches me doing it. As long as nobody reports me for what I just did. You all got a free 10.7 because of one person I found that I thought didn't deserve to fail. And the only way that I could equitably give them a passing grade, in my opinion, was to give you all an extra 0.7. So I did. So that's how some of you ended up with 10.7. To be clear, by the way, that means that Thomas, nice flex, mate, was rated the best report by every single one of his 5 graders. And if 5 people have all said that you are the best, you can have an extra 0.7 of a grade. Well done to you. Cool. If you haven't filled out the form, can you fill it out now? No, because the form was required to be submitted on time in order for your responses to be part of the peer review system. So just send me an email if you haven't filled it out, okay? Cool beans. Does anybody else have any questions about assessment 2, or can we put it to bed? If you got a point 2, oh, sorry, if you have under point 0.7, if you have point 0.7 or less, email me. I added a point 0.7 to everybody in the course who had been graded. If you have a point 2, if you have something less than point 0.7, it means you weren't graded. So just send me an email, okay? Is there anything else I can clarify for you? Do you ever find out your ranking for each of the 5 reviewers? No, you don't. I thought long and hard about this, and I don't think it's of value to you. I mean, if you did super duper well, maybe it's an ego boost for you, and that's wonderful, but you already know you did well because you have a high grade. I don't actually think you knowing your rankings makes you a better writer or a better communicator in any way. Because you may have done badly, you may have been ranked badly, but you may have been ranked against other reports that did super duper well. So let's say you were up against Thomas and 4 other people who did really well like Thomas did. You got the 5th ranking, but you got the 5th ranking out of like the 5 best reports in the course. I don't necessarily it's worth telling you that you were 5th there, because that's going to make you feel bad when you shouldn't feel bad, right? So I don't think it's worth me sharing those rankings. For the cohort at large, I don't think it will make you better writers, so I don't think I'm going to do it. Yeah, after watching the video about it, you were confused. That's fair. That video didn't contain all of the information. That video wasn't there to serve that purpose. All right. Hopefully that means we can put assessment 2 to bed and it can be done, unless you have a point 2 or a point 0.7 and you want to email me about it. Assessment 3. It is almost finished. The only part of assessment 3 you need to do is go and rank your reviewers, and you have until, I shouldn't say midnight. I'm not going to say midnight because I'm going to have somebody fucking ask me about it again. 23:59 tomorrow. Okay? You have until then. Go and rate your reviewers. Remember, you're rating your reviewers on whether they were helpful or unhelpful. So somebody could have come in and been quite critical of you. You haven't done this very well, you haven't done this very well, you haven't done this very well. And if you're like, yeah, that's really clear, and I absolutely know how to do better as a result of that, then they were helpful and you should rank them well as a reviewer. Somebody else who comes in and says, oh, you were great. That's it. They just say you're great. And they give you full marks in everything. And yet you know your report was kind of shit. That's a bad reviewer because they haven't helped you be better. Okay, so you're ranking your reviewers on have they helped you be a better writer or not. Okay, so please make sure you rate your reviewers by tomorrow night. As always, with the Canvas system, it sucks. It'll probably take forever to load. I haven't actually had any complaints that the ranking your reviewer process is bad. Nobody's complained about it at all, so I hope it's nice and smooth and easy for you. But yeah, it'll probably be pretty busy tomorrow night, so try and rank them. I don't know how long it's taken you guys to rank your reviewers. Out of curiosity, I did want to ask this. How long is it taking you to rank your reviewers? Is this like a 5-minute job? Are you spending half an hour on it? Just give me a bit of a feel for how long it's taking you to do this, if you've done it, of course. I actually have no idea how many of you have done it. 15 minutes? That was kind of what I was hoping. 10 minutes? 5 to 10 per review? Half hour, 20. Okay, so most people are in sort of like spent like an hour. Okay. 5 to 10 per one. Sweet. Okay. Is that feeling arduous for you? Are you feeling like this is a lot of work? Or are you feeling that it's okay? The ones that didn't give any feedback got 5, the detailed ones got 15. Yeah, that's a valid point. They're not all necessarily created equal. Cool. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thomas, in Canvas, go back into the portal where you've done everything so far, and you should have an option to give some feedback to your reviewers. That sucks, Bailey. Okay, so I guess in general, this is something that I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk with you all about. So this assessment 3 peer review feedback, this is the first time I've done it this way. I've done peer review of assessment 2 before, but not like this. So a few things that I wanted to get out of you so that I kind of understand it a little bit better. Has it been helpful? Has getting these comments made you think that you're going to be able to do a better job next time you need to come in and write a report? Seems like some of you had a bit of a mixed bag on how good your reviewers are. This is always a concern for me that some people, yeah, it was great. I got heaps of useful feedback. And then somebody else is like, yeah, my reviewers just kind of sucked. Good, helpful. For the most part, no. His feedback was minimal to nil. Yeah, so there we go, right? A bunch of people were like, yeah, this is pretty good. And then somebody's like, I kind of had some shitty reviewers. That it happens, unfortunately. I guess the next kind of two steps there is let's big brain this out. So you got some feedback, and hopefully it was helpful to many of you, although apparently some reviewers are a bit ordinary, to put it nicely. How did you feel that marking other people helped you? Let's assume you didn't actually ever get to see your feedback. And in previous years, I've actually run this and you've never gotten to see the feedback the other people gave you because of the exact points some people are pointing out here that some of these reviewers are a bit shit. So even if you never got to see any of that feedback, do you think being forced to go and read 4 or 5 other reports and provide critiques to them has made you a better writer yourself? Have you been able to see issues that people were having? Have you thought, hey, that's a good way to do it, and I'm going to steal that? Have you felt, hey, that was a really bad way to do it, and I need to avoid doing that in the future? Has being a marker made you a better writer, in your opinion? After reviewing reports, I have more respect for teachers and course coordinators. Yes, Hugh. Yes. If you got well written reports, yes. So that's interesting that you learned from the good examples. I think I personally found, and maybe this says more about me as a writer, that when I started marking, I learned more from the bad examples. The people who clearly thought they'd done a good job, but me sitting on the other side of the fence was like, I don't know what the hell you're trying to say, man. What is this? And I was like, I wonder how often I've written a report where my marker sat on the other side of the fence and went, what the hell is this? Thought seeing people's layout was really helpful in understanding what would work well for me in the future. Yeah, I quite like it from that perspective, being able to just see some different ways people tackled things. I obviously prescribed a structure to you, but I let you have quite a lot of flexibility in how you could interpret it. Well written and formatted reports were easier to mark. You're 100% correct. So even if you're marking on the technical content, something that is well laid out is simply easier to mark. And then inherently, you are biased towards giving it a higher mark. So these are all the things I want you guys to learn and be like, yeah, they're not technically marking formatting and layout in blah, blah, blah report. You know, when you're a second or a third or a fourth year, there may not be any marks associated for this, but it's absolutely easier to mark a report that doesn't look like chicken scratch. Even if the technical content is exactly the same, sometimes layout does help. It is just nicer to mark, right? Reading 1 or 2 good ones helped me understand and see what could be done and how to do it. Yeah. So this to me, and it was personally a big learning for me when I started marking. I immediately became a better writer. And even when I'm writing papers in my research, when I started reviewing other people's papers and providing them feedback, I became a better paper writer. I think it's an important step in the process. So I'm glad to see that you found it helpful. I understand I've probably got a little bit of selection bias here, and that my students who are coming to my stream are probably the ones who found it most helpful. But it's still good to see that it works. Haha, this is important. Big blocks of text are hard to mark. Yeah, marking, it's really easy to get really lazy as a marker, right? You only had to mark 5 reports. Most of your tutors, when you come to courses later, will mark in the order of 50 reports, and they'll probably do it in 1 to 2 days. Back to back, they will smash out 50 reports. Empathize with that person. Make their life as easy as possible to give you as many marks as possible. All right. And then we don't need to talk about this too much, but there's one more thing I want to point out to you is, could you mark your own work? Are you now good enough to put your marker's hat on and read your own work? It is way easier to mark somebody else's work than it is to mark your own. It's so hard to mark your own work. But if you can get in the habit of taking your writing hat off and putting your marker's hat on, and then read your own work from the other side of the fence, you'll be able to see giant gaping holes in it. Now, that's something that's extremely difficult to do quickly. So the more time you can give yourself between when you wrote something and then come back to it a day later, a week later, you'll be able to reflect on it and be able to see, oh, I could have done this so much better. Getting to that point, that like mega mind version of critiquing your own writing by marking yourself, is a really good habit to get into, but it is very hard to learn. I honestly still struggle with it. So what I do instead is I'll trade with people. I'll get other people to read my work. To this day, I don't try and submit my own things. I will always go up to somebody else, hey, can you proofread mine and I'll proofread yours for you next time you have a report you need to submit or something like that. So if you can put your own marker's hat on, great. But maybe take a lesson away from this of, it's heaps easier to mark somebody else's work than your own. So do so. In the future, as students and then as professionals, work with your peers to help you create better reports through, proofreading each other's instead of trying to single-handedly do everything yourself. Bit of heavy bias? Yeah. I didn't know what I was marking for one because they didn't use any headers. Yeah. Yeah, the importance of layout, right? This is interesting. I didn't think so, but one of the things people disagreed with was my structure. I liked, so I may need to reflect. Yeah, yeah. So this happens. It's one of the reasons it's nice to have multiple markers. You liked your own structure, but somebody else might hate your structure, and that maybe is because your structure is bad. But it may just be a difference in personal opinion. Some people like it one way, some people like it a different way. That's fine. I was hoping that with 5 markers, you would get enough of a cross section where if kind of everybody said, I hate your structure, it sucks, then you're like, all right, I'll concede here, my structure probably sucks. But how often did you guys get really strong feedback from one person about something, and then another marker who just totally let it go? Didn't care, didn't phase them at all. Like, I hate your structure, Bailey, it sucks. And then 3 or 4 other markers who are like, yeah, it's fine. Didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. This happens all the time. And you have to be a little bit careful about trying to please everybody. Sometimes you need to pick up on that criticism and you need to adapt to it. And other times you need to let it go and say, sure, this isn't for everybody. So, cool. All right, final thing I want to talk to you guys about. We're going to do this again. So your final assignment, your final report is you're going to write it at the end of semester, and then we're going to go through exactly the same process where you're going to peer review final assignments. Do we need to change anything? I already plan on changing the ranking form a little bit so that it has put them in here. If you have a report that you want to flag for plagiarism, I want to make an extra box for that. And if you have a report that wasn't anonymous, I want to make an extra box for that. So that form's going to get a little bit more complicated, but they were actually two major issues for me trying to data process. So I'm going to put a little bit more detail into that form. The rubrics that you mark on will probably grow a little bit because there'll be more sections in the final report than there were in this one. And we might add a couple more to the formatting rubrics as well. But are there other changes that I should be making to this peer review assessment before we do it the second time around? I'll have a couple of weeks before I'll have to have these implemented, but I have a little bit of time. So I am open to suggestions. If there are things you guys would like to change, let me know. Yeah, you got bad feedback on the feedback for the reports you thought were non-attempts. That will happen. I will need to put a couple of brain cells into how I deal with that for the next time around. I might, I think I might be able to do something about that with the change in the form, but I do need to put some brain cells to that. Is there anything else you think should be changed for the next time around, or do you think it's more or less where we want it to be and we just do the same? I don't want to change too much because obviously you guys kind of already know what you're doing, right? So I don't want to have that extra cognitive load of being like, it's different this time, what's changed? I'd like to just keep the structure more or less as it is and refine anything that was particularly a pain in your ass, basically. So if there was anything like that, please let me know. Um, I think that was everything I wanted to run through there. Yeah. Given so many were pinged for plagiarism, was there actually a lot, or should people change something to avoid it? Oh, a bunch of people just used ChatGPT and didn't think they'd get caught because they're fucking idiots, and we caught it immediately. But one of the issues that I didn't foresee very well was that if one person used ChatGPT, 5 markers reported them as they should have. But I had to deal with it 5 separate times just because I didn't have a great system of realizing that I've already dealt with this case and I acknowledge it. So I think I need like a potted response, which I've got copied and pasted onto a clipboard somewhere that I can send you going, yes, I agree this is ChatGPT, give them 0. I was kind of manually writing that email every single time and I sent it like 100 times. So a little bit of that is my own idiot logistics. Most of the plagiarism overwhelmingly was people using ChatGPT. I'd like to mark some from our project. That way I can apply it to my own. Yeah. So the issue with that is that some of the projects are really small and they only have like 15 or 20 students in it. And then there is a genuine concern that you will get somebody from within your group. And then the whole, is this an anonymous review or not, kind of goes out the window. I thought long and hard about this. I wanted to implement a system where you would get 5 to mark and one of them would be from your own project and the other 4 would be random. But a few of the projects are just too small, unfortunately. That last part about the weighted distribution I found confusing. You might want to review the week 3 lecture content then. Is the rank your reviewer under A2? It's the A2 and A3 portal. But yeah, it's the same portal for for A2 and all of the parts of A3. Same place you've been going. And then again, there'll be one new portal for the final report and the final peer review and the final review your reviewers. Okay, so someone gave me 1 out of 10 in the rate your reviewers part, even though I gave them quite a bit of feedback. I got a couple of things wrong, but it seems they just didn't like what I said. So here's one of the other things to learn here. Uh, Jaden could have given, and I knew that this was a reality, and this is going to bite a whole bunch of you in the ass. Uh, you could give 9 pieces of completely valid feedback, but if you ping somebody one time for something where they weren't wrong and you told them that they were, they're going to hate you forever. And there's nothing you can do about it. This is a thing. This is how it works. You have to be extremely careful when you are critiquing somebody that you don't get anything wrong. It's really, really difficult. So it becomes important to phrase your comments in a particular way around this is wrong, or I think you could do this potentially better. Did you deserve a 1 out of 10, Jaden? No, not at all. You didn't deserve that whatsoever. Are people going to do it to you anyway? Absolutely. It happens all the time. Human beings are kind of shit that way. It sucks. If you absolutely like tank assessment 3, Jaden, and you think it's because of this one person who gave you a real crappy review, by all means reach out to me and I'll investigate it for you. I'm very happy to investigate it for you. It's one of the reasons why the way in which your assessment 3 grade is calculated does rely on your reviewers, but it doesn't rely on them to determine the whole grade or anything like that. There's a whole bunch of things that go into that calculation, like did you do all your reviewing correctly? Did you rate your reviewers? And then did other people rate you as a reviewer? All of these things go together. So that fact that one person didn't like you will get diluted right down. It will not make a big effect on your grade at all. But if you're really unhappy about it and you would like me to look into it, I will look into it for you. How do you catch ChatGPT as a marker? No first year engineering student writes like that ever. It's super obvious. So it's the tone that they use and stuff like that is one of the things. Another one of the things is that if you don't know how to use ChatGPT super duper well, it won't use the terminology that we use in engineering in the correct way. Particularly, it's things like when somebody got it to write weighted performance criteria. The interpretation of ChatGPT of what a weighted performance criteria is and what I told you a weighted performance criteria are in our specific situation are just two completely different things. It went on these tangents about talking like quality control of blah blah blah. I'm like, there's not a single student in this course who's thinking about quality control. It doesn't make any sense. So it's a function of a whole bunch of things. The language, the words used don't make sense, but also the applicability of the points it's making to the project don't make sense. It's just completely off its rocker. And if you knew what you were talking about and you read this stuff, you'd be like, this is insane. An insane person wrote this. So it's super duper easy to find. There were literally cases with words like as an open AI model, blah, blah, blah. Like that was in some of them. Some of them were that easy to catch, but not all of them were that easy to catch. Saying something was wrong, but then turning out I was wrong was my number one fear. Yeah, you got to be really careful in the way that you provide feedback. It's like an inadvertent learning process here. But providing feedback, particularly providing critiques to somebody, is really difficult. It's hard. A few of my reviewers only gave feedback in the target audience feedback sections, no comment on individual sections. That's a little sucky. But if they gave you enough comments in there, a lot of people did this. They didn't quite realize that they could put comments in as they were marking, and then they put really big comments in the target audience. I wouldn't be too mean on somebody who put a comment in a not very helpful spot. If you feel that it helps you be a better writer, you should rank them pretty highly. Look, I honestly want my cohort to know how to use ChatGPT in a way that is helpful and productive. But I need you all to learn that if you copy and paste text out of ChatGPT and hand it to another human being, they're going to fucking hate you because you're going to sound like an idiot. Don't do it. Okay? So you can use it to do things like, hey, can you help proofread this for me? Go for it. But if you haven't put the text in, like, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. And people are going to despise you forever. So use it as an intelligent person would use a tool. If this was a report that could be written by just chuck it in ChatGPT, I wouldn't be asking you to write it. I'd be asking you to chuck it in ChatGPT. How harshly was A2 marked? Mine was pretty bad, but I don't know if it warranted the marks I got. It depends. It was comparatively marked in the end of the day, so it depends on how you stacked up. If you got like less than two, let me know and I'll investigate. All right. All right. I think we've sat there for long enough. I want to talk a little bit. I want to give you guys a little bit of help with your projects before we finish up tonight. So, I'm hoping that your assessment four, and kind of phrase all of this as assessment two, assessment three, assessment four. Overall, your assessment four seems to be doing pretty well. So you all know, either this week, and I know some of you got me this week, or over the next 2 weeks, weeks 9 and weeks 10, I am coming into your classes and I will be personally marking a bunch of your milestones, and at least one of these weeks. Overall, you're doing pretty well. Many of you would benefit from stepping up your game a little bit with how making sure that you are doing a good job of your milestones each week, not because I'm coming, although I am coming to get you for that, but because this is how you make measurable progress towards your projects. It's the end of week 8 right now. Demo week is week 12, which means you need a finished product in week 11 so you can test it. So your first test isn't demo week, which means you have week 9, week 10, and in week 11 you need to be finished. You've got 3 weeks, guys. It's not very far away. You need to be making measurable, considered steps towards getting to an end goal in 3 weeks' time. Use your milestones to help you with that. Many of you are doing that and you're doing great, and I just want you to keep doing what you're doing, but that's their point. So make sure they're doing that. I know the logistics of this sucked this year with we had all the public holidays and then we went into the break and it's been a little bit messy. It should at least be clean between now and the end. Face-to-face classes every single week from this point outwards, you should be good. It is, however, always a good idea when you do your milestones, when you get them marked off, take a picture, throw it in your Discord chat, and when you finish it and you've got your deliverable in your hot little hand, take a picture, throw it in your Discord chat. Why? If you lose your milestone sheet, there's at least evidence that it was there, and I don't have to fail you for it. If something goes wrong, you've got evidence that says, I finished this thing, this deliverable, before it was due. But also, your team can see it. And if one of the members of your team is kind of relying on that to be done, then great, they know it's done and they can proceed. Or also, it might guilt trip some of your other team members into pulling their finger out and being like, ah, crap, I should make sure I get my deliverable done as well. So you should do that every week. Just take a picture, chuck it in your Discord. It costs you nothing, okay? If you do these things and then you are away, and there were people this week who like got flooded in and stuff like that, and they couldn't physically make it to class, but they had their deliverable in Discord and they had a photo of their milestone sheet, and their team just presented on their behalf. Their team knew that they weren't going to be there, and they were like, hey Dylan, here are our 3 milestones, and can we also present on behalf of our 4th team member as well? That's wonderful. That's great. I'm 100% happy to accept that. But you just have to have had your shit together before class started not making that up as you go along in the middle of class. Okay, so get all that sorted first, and if you miss that week, your team can issue you a milestone during the class and get it signed off on your behalf so that you don't have to miss next week as well. So just do that. I know most of you know that already, but I just thought I'd clarify. And then the really important thing, I can and will use your milestone performance to scale test day marks. Things will go wrong between now and test day. They do every year. If you've got a really strong track record of milestones and then something goes wrong on test day to bring you unstuck, okay, I have enough to go back and look through your milestones and see evidence and say, I believe this team would have performed well on test day based on all of this documented evidence. I can give you grades for test day. Also, in a team which is starting to show cracks, which some of your teams are, this happens every year, we get into crunch mode and some teams start to fall apart. We've got people who haven't shown up again post-break, and I know for a fact, because this happens every year, some of you will have team members who won't show up in week 8, 9, 10, or 11, and they will mysteriously reappear in week 12. And when we're like, what the fuck, where you've been, they'll be like, oh yeah, my team made me feel unwelcome. I still want the grades. And if you have all got milestones every week that are there and aligned and have been completed and whatever, then I can be like, no. They all did their milestones. You didn't do yours. You're not getting their grades. That's fine. I've got documented evidence I can use to scale you guys all up for doing the work of 4 people when you're a team of 3. And I can scale that person down because they didn't complete their milestones. But if you all haven't completed your milestones, I have no evidence to go on there. And so they will get the same grade as you, because there's no documented evidence that I can do something else with. All right. So if your team, a member of your team or whatever, isn't functioning as beautifully as you would like it to do, make absolutely sure that you are being very clear about your milestones, because that's the evidence I need in order to take action come test day. Same goes for using your Discord. The more you have used your Discord, the more evidence I can say is there that this person was a functioning team member. If everybody turns on you and says, Dylan didn't do any work at all at any stage, I can go in, see that person, no, you've completed milestones every week and posted a bunch in your Discord. Your team is picking on you. Fuck those guys. And we can give you your grades. All right. So, yeah, they're a thing. I hope I don't have to have these conversations. I hate having these conversations, but I have to have these conversations. So I'm just letting you all know. And then kind of the final bit for this is all of what I've just said is very much me demanding things of you, right? It's me saying you should do this and you should do this and you should do this and you should do this. They go both ways, all right? If you've got me in a milestone meeting, and that's what's going to come for you next week, if it hasn't already, next week, the week after, if it hasn't already, have questions for me. Get information back out of me. All right, Dylan, you made me jump through all of these hoops, and I did. Now, I want this in return. I need help doing a budget estimate. Can you help explain this part of the project? Do you have any advice on the best way to do this versus that? I am 100% happy to help you. What's really important for you all to understand is this is not supposed to be a confrontational relationship. I'm going to be fairly abrasive when I meet with you because my job is to push you as hard as I can, all right? It's not always the funnest meeting when you meet with Dylan about the milestones, but undeniably teams who have a abrupt meeting with Dylan about the milestones do better come test day. They do. We've tested this year on year, and it absolutely helps you out for test day. You're like literally like 10 points higher on test day is the teams who had a milestone meeting with Dylan versus those who didn't. Like out of 30, I'm saying 10 points higher. It makes a huge difference. It's not always fun, but it is absolutely productive. But remember, it's not meant to be me against you. It's meant to be us against the problem. So if you need help, ask. I want you to do super well on test day. I'm going to push you so that you do super well on test day. And if this was a professional relationship, and we were not in a university, we were at a business doing this, I would want you to do as well as possible on test day because I make money out of you doing well, right? So I want to help you. Help me help you. If you want help with something, ask. And don't dance around the point. Don't try and ask cryptic questions to dance around something that you want. Just be very blunt. We think we have a good idea, but we don't know how to make it fit within the budget. Can you help us? That is the type of question you should be asking. Not like, oh, could we maybe do a tricky thing where we only use part of the cost of this thing and blah, 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 blah. Just tell me what you want to know because I might be able to be like, oh yeah, this is really easy to do. You do it like this. Or, no, just change your budget. That's fine. That's a really good idea. Your budget has been modified. This is now your limit. Done. I'm very happy to do that, but you need to ask me very direct questions on what help you want, okay? So don't try and be fancy. Be direct. And absolutely don't hold something in your back pocket that you want to surprise me with on test day. That is bad. Tell me in advance, hey, we think we have this great plan, and I will help you turn it into a reality. Because what I want on test day is I want test day to be nothing but high fives and fuck yes, because we already knew that this worked before we got there. You already know what questions I'm going to ask you on test day before test day comes around because we did that in week 11 or we did that in week 10 and you've got pre-planned answers to all of my difficult questions. That's where I want you to be, all right? That's where we're hoping to get to. Cool. I'm going to quickly read the chat and then this is the last bit of project help I think that we're doing. Just let me quickly skim read. We can come back to that. We can come back to that. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to all the stuff that's in the chat. I think I've got two more slides. I'm going to do this and then I'm going to talk about the final report for a couple of minutes and then I'm done. So I'm going to do that. Hopefully that takes like 10 minutes and then I'm just going to go into general Q&A for the rest of it and we can answer those questions that are in the chat because they're all kind of specific. Project help. All right. So based on the milestone meetings I've had so far this week, and I know this is going to be the tone of a whole bunch of the milestone meetings that I have over the next couple of weeks, you need to optimize your solution. Okay, you need to be designing a solution that has a particular target market in mind and has a set of performance criteria, which is why I asked you to do them in the A2, that tells me what it's going to be optimized at. What is it going to be best at? You've got this big complicated problem. You've got a target market with a whole bunch of parameters that are important to it. What have you optimized your solution to be awesome at in order to facilitate that? And then correspondingly, what are you willing to let go and thinking this is not important? You cannot do one without the other. You cannot be good at everything. Nobody is good at everything. You haven't truly optimized if that's what you're trying to do. So it's important to know what you want to be good at, but in order to be good at that, it's important to know what you're happy to let go. So all of your projects should suck at something. What are they gonna suck at? Know that so that you can gut all the resources out of that area and put them into the thing you want to be good at. So that's what your performance criteria allow you to do. You say we stacked these things as really important and we considered these things basically unimportant. When you have this, it's really important that you get your whole team on the same page, and then every time you make an engineering design decision within your solution, it pulls in the same direction. So what I mean by that is I'm seeing solutions at the moment where one person has gone and built part of it over here, and they've made it the most bulletproof, robust system they possibly can. And somebody has gone and made this part over here, and they've made it cheap as humanly possible. And it's flimsy, but God, it's cheap. And then they've tried to bolt these two things together. And their solution as a whole is a fucking disaster as a result. Because the two things aren't in themselves. Neither of those things is necessarily a bad idea. Expensive but reliable, cheap but disposable. Either could be amazing. But if you put them together like that, that's a really, really, really bad idea. What we want is congruency in our design decisions and our logic. We want to make sure that we are all pulling in the same direction. That we're all going the same way is far, far more important than which way you're going, right? You can go super robust and reliable, or you can go super cheap and disposable, but you can't go in both. So if you're going reliable and robust, you're going to lose on cost. You are. Somebody else in the class is going to wipe the floor with you on cost, and you don't care. You're going to let that go. You're going to lose there, but you're going to win on lifetime and durability and safety and blah, 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 all these other things. Only by knowing where you're going to lose are you able to win. And this then influences all of your design decisions. Hey, should we do this like this or like that? Well, what are we trying to optimize for? Oh, we're trying to optimize for blah, blah, blah. Great, then we should do it like that. And your design decision-making process becomes really easy from that point onwards. So does your team unity. If your whole team is kind of on the same page about what you're trying to achieve, it becomes a lot easier. This is not simple. I don't expect you to just be like, oh, magic, we solved it, we're pulling in the right direction now. But it's a headspace to be able to put yourselves in. It's a step back sometimes to take and some perspective to get in order to make sure you're problem solving correctly. All right? This is the bit of advice I've given so far to almost every single team I've had a milestone conversation with. And that's like 22 teams to no 31 teams I've had milestone discussions with, and I think I've had this conversation with something like 28 of them. I think there's like 3 teams I haven't had it with. So I'm having it with all of you now. Get on the same page. Know what your performance criteria are. What are you optimizing for, and what are you willing to let go? This is how you do good engineering decision making. And I'll be asking you about this not just in these next couple of weeks, but also come test day. The other thing that I don't have on my slide that I should just now I think about it point out to you. My favorite question when I'm evaluating designs is, I don't believe you, prove it to me. So anytime you tell me this is good, this is robust, this is strong, this is cheap, this is whatever, I'm going to say, I don't believe you, prove it to me. How are you going to answer that question? Do you have data to back up your opinions? So quite often when you're in your testing phase, which is where you are at the moment, it's a really good idea to make sure you collect some data, even of things that go badly. Because then when I say, you say, hey, we've done this, it's the best, and I say, I don't believe you, prove it to me, you can say, well, we tried this other thing and it was very clearly worse, and we have the data to back that up. You can try and do this in your own team. Black hat your design decision making processes, not to the point where it slows you down, just to the point where you've explored the idea correctly. Hey, do we actually have evidence for that opinion? Yes or no? If no, can we get some? Or can we record some data as our testing or something like that? Okay, I'll help you with that when we have our milestone meetings, but it's just a thing I thought I would flag with you. Cool. And finally, your final report. So this is not out yet. This is going to come out in, I'm hoping, a week or two. It's going to be worth 25 to 30%. There's what the course outline says, and then there's what I may be able to do to artificially increase all of your grades if nobody tells anybody that I'm definitely doing the wrong thing. I'm expecting you to have to dump in at least 30 hours, but realistically, this is going to be two to 3 times as much work as your assessment 2. So however much time you put into assessment 2, expect to have to put 2 to 3 times as much into assessment 6. That being said, assessment 6 will absolutely ask you for a big picture overview of the problem. So if you did a good job of that in assessment 2, you will be allowed to reuse it. So 2 to 3 times as much work. That's kind of what's in store for you, but you might have done some of that work already. It will be officially due Friday of week 13 at 5 p.m. That's what is in the course outline. That's when it is officially due. Unofficially, I will give you an extension to Monday of week 14, possibly till midnight. Be aware, though, there is an extremely high chance you will all have an exam on that day. That's almost a guarantee. First year engineering almost always has maths scheduled on the first Monday of the break. You may not this year. I don't know how they do the timetable, but you're almost guaranteed to have an exam there. So although I will give you an extension, you may not want to take it. You may want to submit this shit so it can be done and you can focus on your maths exam or whatever exam you end up with on the Monday of week 14. But I will give you an extension. Again, as long as nobody officially asks any questions, I will give you that extension. I'm absolutely not allowed to do this, by the way. University policy is extremely clear that this report is not allowed to be due past Friday of week 13. So officially, I am not allowed to move this due date. Cool. As always, I'll do feedback streams before feedback live streams before it's due, just like I did for assessment 2, where I'll proofread reports on stream and answer all your questions and all that kind of stuff. I'm hoping to release it in week 10. That's my current plan, is I'm hoping to use the week 10 live stream to release this assessment, or at least a draft of this assessment. You don't need it. The reason I'm telling you about it now is it's going to ask you to do a whole bunch of things like justify your design decisions, justify and evaluate. So it'll be basically, the start of it will be very similar to the assessment 2 start by design. Then it will ask you about your build process, your testing process, and it will ask you to justify the design decisions that you made, and then it will ask you to evaluate those design decisions. All right? So when I was saying before, it's a good idea to have the I don't believe you, prove it to me mentality down. It's a good idea partly because that will help you for test day. It's a good idea partly because that will help you have data to put in your report. Okay? Cool. And then we'll do the peer review of that following, just like normal. With that, we're basically done with content in the course. There will be a live stream where I will release the assessment. I will do a live stream in week 11 in order to help prep you for test day. We'll do a live stream in week 12 to talk about test day and break it down. And I'll do some live stream stuff in week 13 to help you with that assessment. Beyond that, the content is more or less finished. You will get some content around test day videos and stuff like that. All of the accessible content for the course is officially basically done. There's no more big lecture dumps or anything like that. And most streams are going to take about this long, if they even take this long from this point. I want you to be working on your projects, not listening to me. So I'm going to be talking to you as little as possible. I'll be here so I can answer as many questions as you have. I'm very happy to do that. I'm not abandoning you, but your focus should very much be work on your projects from here. You are over the lecture hill, right? Once you got through the first 7 weeks of lecture content, you were over the hill. That was very deliberate. I know there was a shitload of lecture content in those weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was heaps of lecture content. You got through it. You're on the other side of it now. Work on your projects. That's where all your brain cells go. And then eventually, yes, they'll go into your report as well. So is there a live stream next week? I don't think so. Unless I have assessment 6, the final report brief finished, which I don't think I'm going to have, I don't think there's any reason to have a live stream next week. I think what I want to say to you is work on your projects. There is a chance that I'll have the brief ready, so I don't want to officially can it yet. If I have the brief ready, we'll have a week. You don't need a week 9 and a week 10 live stream. You're only going to have one of them. So Just when does Dylan have the brief ready? If it's ready in week 9, I'll give it to you in week 9, and then you'll have week 10 off. If it's ready in week not ready in week 9, then you'll have week 9 off and you'll have week 10. I don't want to take up any more of your time than I need to. Your time is precious to me because I want you working on your project, so I will give you back as much of that as humanly possible. So, that being said, if you are good from here, you are free. Please go and enjoy your evening. If you have questions for me, I will stick around for as long as I need to answer your questions. Please chuck them in the chat now. But otherwise, I want to reiterate what I said before. I'm really happy with how most of you are going in the course at this stage. You are kicking ass. I am stoked with how many classes I've walked into this week, and there have been prototypes out. There have been real structures and whatever out and ready to go and testable. It's fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Go forth and prosper, okay? So if you're done, you're done. If you want to ask any questions, please ask them now. I'll answer them for as long as it takes. Otherwise, good night, everybody. Thomas, interesting. Let me see. I'm going to open Canvas up and see what I can see here. I don't know how slow this is going to be. Nope, wrong button. Come on, Canvas. I've written stuff for all except one person, and it says rated 0 out of 4. Okay, I'll see what I can see. It takes as long to load for me as it does for you guys, by the way. I think it takes longer, so it's still loading. Now I have to sort you. What's your name? Thomas. I can only see 10 of you at a time, which means I now have to go through 500 of you in boxes of 10 until I can find you, Thomas. Take me a second. Where would I be able to gain access to inkjet printers? Don't know. You might, if you've got a home printer, it'll be an inkjet printer. So if anybody in your team has a, I'm guessing you're a robot student. If anybody in your team has a home printer, get them to print it out. You might be able to go to like Officeworks or something and ask them. But most large scale printers are laser because it's much cheaper. No, I can't control F for you. It opens a little browser window each time I press it. I have to go through them alphabetically. I've done this. It's like it takes me ages every time I have to investigate one. It's because one of the reasons it's because I have to do this. I can't download them. It doesn't let me. This system is really good, but it is not really good for 700, 600 people doing peer review at once. As you guys have felt the pain, and so have I. Struggling with communication with your team. Yes, I did see that before. I did tell you I'd answer that question. So what you should do if you're struggling with communication within your team is schedule a team meeting every week. It's a really productive thing to do is to have a team meeting. I mean, everybody should have one anyway. And that way, at the very least, you guys can try and present stuff in your team meetings. And if you have a team meeting scheduled every week and you do your milestones, again, also pay attention with your milestones. I can then use that to sort of interject and talk to your team about what level of responsibility we sort of expect from them. I can't necessarily make them better communicators, but if you have a scheduled team meeting every week, that at least puts in, a point in the calendar where you should at least get to see them twice a week as a result, and that can be really helpful. But also try and write milestones where you don't need to communicate with your team that much. Officeworks at Katara is definitely laser. You may, I don't know what happens if you ask them, whether they have the ability to do inkjet. Maybe they do. Thomas, I've got you at 100% complete. Received reviews and feedback. Feedback on feedback. I'm just opening you up now. Yeah, so getting good communication, just big picture to answer that question maybe a little bit better. Getting your communication right within a team is really difficult because people work differently. Obviously, I will work at the wee hours of the morning and da 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 da. I'm very happy to have very casual communication when I'm talking about myself in professional teams. But not everybody else is like that. Some other people will want to have scheduled meetings when they communicate, and that kind of clash of working styles can be really frustrating. So, one of the things to do to always be aware of is kind of have where you would like to be, which is, hey, I'd love to have, my team on Discord all the time, checking in, chatting, da da da, going to the pub together, whatever. That might be where you want to be, but also kind of have a minimum requirement that everybody agrees to. So, and it might be, we're all going to make it to the tutorial and we're all going to make it to one meeting a week. And that way, if somebody is not the type of person who thinks about this stuff all the time, they still have a minimum requirement that is fair, that they agree to, that they think is reasonable. And then you can kind of see whether you can work with that limited amount of communication. It's a really good strategy to have something like that. In not just in ENGG1500, and to some extent, the die has been cast largely in your teams now. But when you're moving forward, it's a really good idea to have something in the calendar once a week, or twice a week, or once a day, or whatever it needs to be. And it can be small, it can be a short 15-minute check-in, but it's in the calendar and it's documented, and everybody agrees to that as this is what we are doing. Um, and that way, if somebody isn't doing that, then they can be held accountable. If you've just got, yeah, I didn't get an answer to my message, it's like, yeah, man, you sent it at 10 o'clock at night. Fuck you. I'm not answering messages outside of business hours. And, they're entitled to that as a response there. So just try and get that kind of minimum level of engagement agreed to within your team. By the way, Thomas, it crashed when I went into you, so I'm now going to try and find you again. But it did say you had 100% completion before I tried to view it, and then when I tried to view it, it crashed. So I'll check again for you. Oh, okay, you refresh the page and it's all good? Sick. Sick. All right, I won't bother then. Cool beans. Cool beans. Sweet. Is there anything else I can help anybody with? All right. If not, I'll call it there. Thank you, everybody, for being awesome. Good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good luck with your projects.